Hi, so this is an A-level PE Sport and Society video for AQA, and this is going to look at the characteristics of rational rec and how they link to the social, cultural conditions during this industrial revolution in Britain. So first thing let's look at is the characteristics of rational rec. So codification and stringent administration. So we've got national governing bodies now, and they're setting national rules for sport around the country, so everyone's playing to the same rules. Sport becomes more respectable, it becomes less violent, it becomes to be played in the urban environments because of the growth of cities. We've got control of gambling, new laws come into place because of gambling. We have amateurism and professionalism during this period. We have fair play adopted from the public schoolboys. We start to get some purpose-built facilities and areas where we have pitches. And we have regional, national and international competitions. There's also an impact of religion at this time. So let's look at the comparisons between popular rec. So pre-industrial Britain is our popular rec. And so we know that it was seasonal, wasn't it? It had limited transport, so people didn't travel very far, it was local. High levels of illiteracy. Harsh rural lifestyle. Had a two-class system, the lower class and the upper class. They're mostly involved in agriculture. It was quite uncivilized and a harsh way of life. Very low technology at the time. So let's compare that to this period, industrial Britain, when rational rec takes off. So we've now got machine time. So what that means is we can start to have shifts, there is lighting inside the factories, so they're not working just daylight hours, they have a set period of time they can work, so it does build a little bit of flexibility into free time. We get steam trains for transport, but more importantly, to take people to places at this period. People now have more admin skills, there's high levels of literacy, more people can read and write. It's a more civilized, more law and order involved, so life is a little less harsh and a little less violent. There's an emergence of a middle class. There's a lot more members of the middle class, and they have a huge influence, particularly for the lower class in relation to sport. It's an industrial, more high-tech place in Britain. Increased law and order and technological advancements due to the Industrial Revolution. So we're starting to really progress in society. So these here are all to do with how society is changing. So let's look at the links in a bit more detail. So sport becomes more respectable. And that's because the middle class in Britain at the time wanted to have high levels of etiquette. They wanted to follow what they saw as their betters, the upper class, by acting in a more genteel way. The public boys, schoolboys also influenced this with their fair play and muscular Christianity morals. And in society as a whole, there was now law and order. We started to get police forces in the towns and cities, creating more order in the streets. It became more regular. So we started to have games on Saturday, as workers were given half a day off on Saturday. And that time could be then used to play sport, and that was often created by the factories that they worked in. There was also improved transport, so you could travel quickly to get to the place where you're going to play the game. It was rule-based, so we now have one set of rules because people can read rule books. We're a lot more educated as a whole society. We now have national governing bodies, which are high admin, and are creating these rules and league structures, etc. It becomes regional, national and international because we can now travel. So you can have national leagues that travel city to play, not just locally. You can even get an international team where initially we just start to have games within the home nations of England, Wales and Scotland, but that does start to move further afield, particularly in cricket. Religion. So religion buys in to rational rec where it didn't popular recreation. It didn't like popular recreation, but it could see the worth in rational recreation because it was more respectable, it was less violent. They could use muscular Christianity to link religion to sport. It was also a good way of increasing the amount of people coming to church, because then they could play in the church teams that were started. It had purpose-built facilities. So in the cities, there was a lack of open space. So you couldn't just have pitches as large as the village green, etc., or the whole village. You had to have purpose-built facilities on the little open space that was available. So football pitches became a set size, and you could have them next to each other. It's no surprise that they're rectangular, because they can go side by side by side, as you'll see today. So the Victorians sort of brought that about. Improved technology brought about things like swimming baths, and often these were linked to industrial patronage, which is the wealthy factory owners creating facilities and resources to make their workers' lives better. So they would often produce areas for sport and build swimming baths for the health and well-being and the cleanliness of their staff. It was an urban setting now. So sport became played in an urban setting because most people now lived in these cities. Amateur and professionalism is something I'll look in more detail in another video, because it's a topic on its own. But essentially, the middle class were the amateurs and weren't paid. They played for the love of the game. And the lower class professionals sought money because they were maybe losing time off work. And we'll look at the exclusion clause, which was built in some amateur sports to stop professionals playing. There was also a control of gambling, which meant there was increased law and order, and gambling became a little bit more respectable. So let's just paraphrase those. So we had increased time. That led to more sport being played. We had half-day Saturday. That allowed a clear moment where sport could be played in that week. We had the early closing movement, which allowed more free time for sport to be played. We had a week's paid holiday, so that's more time for recreation. The transport revolution, the steam trains could take people to different places to go and play. And then we also had the changing views of the church, who hated popular recreation but could see a value in rational recreation. And maybe the church ministers had a good experience of sport coming through the public schools and wanted to pass that on to their congregations. Thanks for watching this video. Now go and check out some of the other ones I've got on sport and society, and I've got someone on analysis and evaluation. Good luck.